I'm Allan Cogan. Join me as I tour the country tasting different whiskeys and discussing the craft of distillation with local distillers, whiskey lovers, and even those who are new to the culture of spirits. Welcome to the Cogan Conversation. In this episode, I sat down with Evan Hughes, the co-owner of the Central Standard Craft Distillery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hope you enjoy it. Cheers. So, Evan, we're here at the Central Standard Distillery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my hometown, so it's very special for me, but I've actually never been here, which shame on me.
That is shame on you.
But no better reason than to come here and talk to you about the whiskey.
You got to come back and visit your parents more, man. Come on.
Don't tell them that. But I've had a red cabin before. I've had the cabin strength before. It's great bourbon. I love it. But I know you're here, and I thought, why not reach out while I'm in town? So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into the space, and tell me about Central Standard.
Sure. That's a lot of questions. So I'll start with myself. So my background is really in publishing, actually. So I'm originally from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Went to school up in the Twin Cities and kind of made a tour around the West Coast. Denver, Scottsdale, and then made my way back to the Midwest. So I started when I was in Arizona with some friends, a magazine called Draft Magazine. It was a lifestyle magazine for craft beer. And so although at the time in 2006, I was really into craft beer, I still love craft beer. I found myself in my travels starting to cheat on beer with spirits. And I've always loved cocktails, and whether that's having some elevated cocktails at a bar or restaurant or getting creative at my house, it was kind of an amalgamation of what brought me to this point. So in 2012, my business partner and I, his name's Pat, it was 2012, we just started talking about, like, we should start a side business. I still had Draft Magazine. He was a corporate banker. And we would get together and try different spirits that we would collect from our travels around the country. And it was always craft stuff, right? And we leaned towards bourbon and rye, but anything we could get our hands on.
Sure.
We get together every quarter or so and try stuff. And at the time, kind of our peer group, there was a lot of negativity around being a younger entrepreneur in Milwaukee and how the city wasn't supportive. And we kind of found ourselves talking in that same manner. And we really didn't know that was true or not. So we wanted to start something small on the side that would be fun. I should say that this was before we both had kids as well, when we had myriads of free time. But we would get together, had a bunch of really bad ideas for businesses. I think one was like a single-use men's like pre-soaped loofah.
Oh,
he still thinks we should have done that, which I would have never used it. So one evening we did very much unintentionally or intentionally overserve ourselves. And we just looked at each other like, this is what brings us together. Spirits bring us together. And we literally back of the napkin did that evening in 2012.
Wow.
Yep.
That's cool.
I know.
So when did you open?
So we opened in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. I'm sorry, 2014. Gosh.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
2014.
Very cool. Wow, that's part of why I'm doing this, why I want to talk to you, is because a lot of what I love about craft distilleries and just whiskey in general, I mean, even the big players, it brings people together. I mean, I know all my friend group because of sharing whiskey over a campfire, having a cigar, enjoying cocktails, and playing with different things. So
our tagline is actually crafted together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. What does it mean to you to be part of a craft distillery bringing people together in the state of Wisconsin that you're from?
Well, for us, it started, Pat was a banker. I was a publisher. We didn't really have any creative outlets at all, sure. Right? So, I mean, Pat is a creative. I think that bankers that are creative generally go to jail. So it was probably good that he wasn't creative, but it really started out of the pride from where we are from, where we live, and bringing people together, as well as giving ourselves that creative outlet that we really didn't have at the time.
Right. That's awesome. So tell me a little about your spirit. What makes Central Standard unique? There's so many craft distilleries out there. I think we're all in the same community and business that, there's no competition other than just name recognition, but what makes you unique?
So but before I answer the unique question, I think that one thing that we've done intentionally, when we first started in 2014, I would say our first 3 batches were not great. I mean, we like had an idea, because again, this is our first chance at creativity in our lives. We had an idea of what we wanted, and so we had 100% Wisconsin rye vodka. It was really good. It just, if you were mixing a cranberry vodka at noon, it tasted weird, right? Like that rye gave it a lot of spiciness and sweetness, and it was different. So if you're buying a $30 bottle of craft vodka and it doesn't mix with what you're used to, it didn't move, right? And we had an oat whiskey and a lightly juniper gin, so like a plussed up vodka gin, and like again, it was because it was intentionally done, but it just wasn't. It didn't sell, and looking back on it, it's, you know, we feel a little foolish, but like it wasn't great.
Sure.
But we're adult enough to understand, like we didn't know what we were doing, and so it took us a while to really get to a place of not only confidence on the technological side of distilling. I mean, there's no roadmap for a business like this. You know, in brewing, you can home brew. You know if you're proficient. You know if you're good at it. We didn't, right? And so, you know, we were distilling our first batches 2 years after we had an idea. We didn't know if we knew how to do it. So from there, like most craft distilleries, I think you don't really know what you don't know until you try a bunch of stuff. And so we had a bunch of different products. You know, gins, we had rye whiskeys, we had bourbons, we had different vodkas, we had brandies, we had all this stuff. And then all these like limited time offer things. And for us, it was, I think what was unique about us is, as a craft distiller, we said, all right, we can't expect our distributor partners to sell 14 different things. Like, we need to really understand what we're good at and what we feel like our fans want, right? So we really thinned the herd down to like 4 core items. And for us, that's Door County Cherry Vodka, North Brandy, and Red Cabin Bourbon, right? So those are the most widely distributed of our products. And they all have a unique twist, right? Whether it's time and a place, where, you know, Red Cabin, you know, the label of it is, it's got a cabin on it. That's my cabin from growing up.
Oh, that's cool.
We finish it in Cabernet wine barrels from California. It's red wine, cab in the barrel. I mean, it's like, it all comes together. And honestly, like for me, this is like sitting around a campfire with your friends and enjoying each other's company and having a good bourbon.
Absolutely.
And Door County Cherry, the same thing. You know, I mean, it's got a time and a place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you source a lot of the materials that you use or ingredients you use from Wisconsin?
Oh yeah, most of them.
Awesome.
Vast majority of them.
Very cool.
In fact, we work with, for our rye and corn and barley, we work with a single farmer in Ottawa, Wisconsin, which is by Dousman, Oconomowoc area. So it's within 30 miles of Milwaukee.
Right. Very
and that's
cool.
where the majority of our grain comes from. Or Sequest Orchards up in Sister Bay, they press our cherry juice for us. Right. At harvest. And Sequest, or I'm sorry, we work with a beekeeper up in Germantown for we back sweeten the tartness of the cherries in the Door County, but it's all local.
I mean, we've poured some Red Cabin, and let's start there. We've poured some Red Cabin. We're sipping on it while we're talking. Tell me about that. That's your benchmark bourbon that everyone knows, that I know, that I've had before. Tell me about it. So
this is actually out of everything that we have, I find myself drinking Red Cabin the most at home, right? I don't drink a ton at home, but this is probably my go-to. Whether I'm making cocktails or generally I'm sipping it just on its own. For us, this was the first bourbon. When we started, we had a whole bunch of different mash bills. We had different sized barrels, and you kind of, in the bourbon business, you got to try some stuff, right? And it doesn't always work. And you understand after 6 months, okay, it's progressing correctly, you know, the way we want. After 12 months, it's a little better. A couple years, like, you start understanding the direction that they're going to go and what flavors are going to be coming out of it. So you kind of got to take a bit of a leap of faith too when it comes to bourbon. It's like, I would say it's probably the dumbest business. Like, you have to hire people, build the infrastructure, buy the expensive barrels, buy all the raw materials, all the ingredients. You got to make it. You got to put all that money up front. You put it on a barrel and you're like, shit, hope that's good someday. Right. Hope we get our money back. But again, if it's a decision to get into that. And for us, Red Cabin was our best start, in our opinion. And it's aged about 5 years. And then we plus it up even more with finishing it in the California Cabernet wine barrels for about 30 to 60 days. They're all different.
Yeah, that cab finish is strong. I love that sweetness.
Yeah.
I'm a big cab guy too. So,
well, we really liked it. And the one thing that I would say is different about this one than other kind of peers in that category is we have it at 85 proof. At 90 or anything above 90, like you get a lot of it on the finish, right? Yep. When you breathe out. It just disappeared for the most part, right? I mean, you could still kind of, but we really get it at 85.
Sure.
So we kept it there.
When you first started, were you just starting with your own mash, or did you source any from MGP just to start out in the beginning? How'd you? No,
that's why we had an oat whiskey. It was basically oat moonshine. No, we didn't source anything from the bulk guys. We started again, like I said, just different size barrels, different chars, different mash bills, and I would say we still have some of those barrels, which is going to be, we haven't tried this in a while. We should probably get back to that.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Almost like a nostalgic, this is where we started thing.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Are there any things that you're experimenting with that you're excited to see?
Oh yeah. We have in the bourbon side of things, we've got some interesting innovation that we're working on for next year for sure. And it's, nothing I'm ready to say on a microphone yet, but or commit to email. But I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty incredible. And the one thing that we have an advantage, and I wouldn't say advantage. We've got this great downtown distillery experience, and it's really become that focus group for us. And when we start doing these things, we start teasing them out a little bit and just getting raw feedback, what I like and what Pat likes and our chief commercial officer, Jim, we all, sometimes it can be an echo chamber and we get really excited about something and then it doesn't perform when we commercialize it. So we've tried to do a lot better job, talking to our fans about it, talking to the people that want to support us and getting their feedback.
Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit more about Milwaukee, because the community here is strong. I mean, I love this place whenever I come home.
You moved away, man.
I got a job.
You got to come back.
I got a job that paid well.
Oh, man.
That affords me to come back and...
I suppose that's okay. No, Milwaukee, I mean, the Renaissance in Milwaukee has been incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved here, so I'll say this into a microphone. I might regret it, but, growing up in Oshkosh, we would come down to Milwaukee for a Bucks game and, or come to a nice dinner. And it was always my parents being like, oh, it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. And so I moved up here from Chicago at the time. I got engaged and my fiance lived here, and I wasn't really all that stoked to come back. That was in 2008. And moving from Chicago, she was thinking about moving down there. I'm like, well, we'll go back and visit. We have not gone back once. We love it here. I mean, it was really, I think I don't think it had anything to do with me moving here, but right around 2008, tons of construction, lots of exciting restaurants opening, lots of exciting craft businesses, whether it's alcohol craft businesses or just other craft businesses, really started around that time. And it's only gotten better.
I mean, part of the community, have you been a part of different festivals, different things that you do? Have you really taken advantage of the new Pfizer Forum District? What's going on with the symbiotic relationship between you and the community? Yeah,
I mean, we've been fortunate. We've got great distribution at a lot of the fairs and festivals.
Cool.
A lot of the arenas. I'm going to a Brewers game tonight, and American Family Field carries most of our stuff. And
it's Miller Park, but yeah.
Yeah, it is Miller Park. Did you see I had to stop and say the right word? But no, we've been super, super fortunate. The community, I would say, in Southeast Wisconsin, if you're an entrepreneur and you're going to go out on a limb, you're going to invest your life savings into doing something, you got to deliver on the product that you're selling, but they're super supportive. And I think that's different than other markets, I think.
Yeah.
You go to larger cities and it's very much pay for play. And I would say in Milwaukee, people are like, hey, you're one of us, you're doing the right things. We want to support you back, which has been great.
Do you do any relationships with Great Lakes, or because I mean, really, honestly, you and Great Lakes are the really only Milwaukee distilleries other than, is it Twisted?
Twisted Path.
They're not whiskey, but
yeah, they have some whiskey stuff.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. And Brian's a good guy, so we're all I would say we're frenemies. We are all good. Honestly, we're all good friends, and we've all helped each other out at certain points, and we've not done a collaboration with them, but we certainly talk a lot, and and are helpful to each other for sure.
Very cool. What about the cab finish? Do you use any Wisconsin wines? How does that work?
We don't. However, I've gotten over the past 2 years, I've gotten into a lot more Wisconsin wine. I do enjoy wine. My wife loves wine. I guess I was always intimidated on the wine side in Wisconsin because I didn't understand, I didn't know what a LaCrosse grape was. I had no idea what some of the varietals were. And I think the Wisconsin wineries have really, I think it used to be trying to make something that people would understand. And now they're like, hey, this is who we are. Our ingredients, our grapes are fantastic for what we're making. And I've really gotten into a lot of different Wisconsin wines. And that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, now I have to ask too, because it's Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Anything coming up with beer finishes?
Yes, I forgot to answer your question on the previous one. We don't use any Wisconsin wine barrels currently for Red Cabin. So we work with a company in Napa where when we get the barrels, we buy them. They work with 10 different wineries in Napa, but we don't know what wineries they irritatingly sand off the brand names from the wineries. But we know that it's consistent and they've been a really good partner, and maybe someday we'll be able to talk them into telling us who it's actually from. But your next question was
beer.
Yeah. So we've done some really cool stuff, not on the bourbon side, but on the brandy side with beer partnerships. So, the first one we did was with Toppling Goliath, out of Iowa.
Yeah.
It's so delicious. It's awesome. And the great part about brandy is that you can make a traditional Wisconsin old fashioned with some of these riffs on a normal brandy.
Yeah. And
it's a different experience, but it's awesome. It's so much fun. The Toppling one we did, we used some of their assassin barrels, and just took our finished brandy and then put it in the barrel. And then we did something similar with Hinterland up in Green Bay. That was also delicious. It's like a cherry wheat that they have.
Wow.
And that was a similar process as well. And then we did one last year with Hofbrau Munich, which ended up being one of the 7 finalists for the Innovation Award for Discus nationally. And we're doing it again this year. The process on that's much different. So Hofbrau, they have a little bit more history than we do here at Central Standard, 400 years more experience. But they don't put anything in barrels. So there's that partnership that we had with other breweries wouldn't work with them.
Right.
So we actually had to, they shipped us beer, their Delicator, awesome beer. And we had to de-elk it. And then apply a bunch of filtration to it, so we could actually get the beer in the whole amalgamation of the brandy and the Hofbrau beer. It's one of those things that I'm telling the story now, it's sounds super easy. It was incredibly difficult. But the final product was absolutely awesome. It tastes on it like dark forest, like black chocolate cake.
Ooh.
Black forest cake, not dark forest, whatever I said.
Black Forest, Germany. Yeah. That's amazing.
It is really good. That's what you're having?
It's a chocolate brandy.
That might be just chocolate brandy, but it does have chocolate notes from the beer when it comes together with the brandy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you give your barrels that you've aged anything in to other places?
We do. We give them to other breweries that want to do fun stuff with them. We don't really sell them a lot.
Sure.
For us, again, going back to that creativity when we started, it's cool for Pat, Jim, and I to take something that we're really proud of and give it to somebody else that's going to be creative with it. And honestly, we don't know what they're going to do with it. and we've gotten to try some really cool stuff.
That's really cool. So I guess let's go down the line. We just had some Red Cabin.
Yep.
What's next? What's the next in line?
What do you want, man? So why don't we try, since we did bourbon first.
Yeah.
Kind of went in the opposide order here. Let's do our dockside bourbon.
Okay.
So this is our bourbon whiskey. This is aged. So it's not the same mash bill as Red Cabin. And it's much younger. So you're gonna get a lot more oak on this.
Okay.
So we do have barrels that are laying down that will be released later, but it's still a little bit young.
Okay. That make you pound your.
That was a big gulp. I got it. There you go.
Thank you. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
We haven't cheersed yet.
Yeah, there we go. So you get a ton of that oak.
That's much more of a toasted
Yes.
woody.
Yep.
Very different.
So this is jar number 3.
Okay.
That we use on this on Dockside. But this one, I enjoy sipping it. This one, I feel like if you're just sampling it straight, I feel like Red Cabin has a little bit more complexity.
Yeah.
Dockside, however, holds up a lot better in cocktails.
I could taste that.
A lot of the bourbon cocktails that I make at home or that we serve here are with Dockside. It's got a little bit more backbone to it than Red Cabin does for cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does really well.
So I know you just said when you're at home you make cocktails with your own stuff. Maybe you're biased. Who is someone you look up to? Like as far as like a bourbon that you want to attain? That's my flavor profile that I loved. I want to recreate that. Is there anyone that stands out?
There's really not, and I've actually been asked that question a lot. I don't really know how to answer it because I do drink my stuff at home a lot and when we're out, but I also have a pretty big bourbon collection, and so I'm not like I shouldn't say collection. I have a lot of bourbon bottles and I open them and I drink them. And that's fun, and it gives you ideas of things that we're trying to do. I wouldn't say that there's one that like I just have to seek out and have. I'd rather seek it out, and then as we get better every year, and our R&D team and our distillers get better every year, like we're getting to that. We've gotten to that point where we can be more nuanced than we were in the start, right?
Sure.
In the start, it was charred barrel, mash bill. We know how to distill, toss it in a barrel. Now it's like, okay, now we're a lot more scientific about it, and I think that comes with being able to invest into a lot more like lab equipment.
Yeah.
Where we're able to be much more scientific and go for certain flavors now.
Right.
And that's been a fun evolution because I mean these businesses, whether it goes for craft beer and wine too. There's like no roadmap and like you don't have the answers day one. All the equipment's different, everything's different. The water's different. It doesn't matter. There's so many different variables, and you just got to figure out what works for you and then build that base from there.
One of the things I've noticed when I've been doing this and doing, kind of traveling around and talking to distillers, especially craft distillers, there seems to be a lot more TLC. I mean, you've been animated about talking about your product, which is great, but there's a lot more TLC put into the craft. Not to poo-poo anybody big like Jim Beam or whatever,
right.
Still good bourbon.
Yeah.
Lots of history. But do you think there's a little bit to that? How, like the quality of the product and the quality of the things that you're sourcing?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty big dichotomy in how they're doing it and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I always say like in beer. So let's use a local product here, River West Stein from Lakefront.
Yeah.
If you put that next to a Bud Light, there's absolutely no question that River West Stein's a better beer. It's got more color. It has better ingredients. It smells more like beer. It's a better beer.
Yep.
Whether you prefer that or not is the question. But in our industry, there's no separation. I mean, the story and the process is the separation. So, you said Jim Beam. I have nothing against Jim Beam, but like if you go to their distillery, you've got their distiller who is working on giant computer screens, moving mashes all automatically. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just different than what we have.
Yeah.
We're schlepping around hoses and pumps and moving stuff around the old fashioned way. And there's also just not that big difference. I mean, they make a great bourbon. We make a great bourbon. It's different, but it's all like really high quality. And so how do you compete as us, Maker's Mark? I mean, that's a good bourbon. Yeah. It's $10 less than my bourbon. It's like so irritating to me,
Yeah. Well, do you think there's any perception in the market though? I think that's starting to shift a little bit.
No, I agree with you. And there definitely is a perception in the market. And the way that we're doing things is very hands-on.
Right.
And it's out of necessity. And we're not trying to raise money or make enough money where we can afford fancy robots too. I mean, that's not what we do. That doesn't go back to the creativity that started the business. And, but yeah, I do think that the market is shifting a bit as well, and they're seeking out more craft products. And with that, I think it also shifts down brand loyalty.
Sure.
Not only on the craft side, but the big side too.
Absolutely.
I mean, drinkers are a lot more promiscuous now, and when they go into a bar, they're asking questions like, they come into our distillery like, what's local here? I'm like, well, we make everything, so it's like all local.
Yeah.
Like some of it was made in the basement here. So, yeah, it's been a cool to see the consumer habits changing.
I just talked to the master distiller at George Washington's distillery out at Mount Vernon. And what was really cool about him, well, first of all, he's a historian first and foremost. So he knows all the things. He actually wears period clothing while making. It's
for real.
Yeah,
that's cool. I've never been. I was there when I was a kid, but
yeah,
when I was there for my 8th grade trip, they didn't take us to the distillery part.
I wonder
which
why.
is like a major miss by my teacher.
Well, if you're ever out there again, hit me up and that'd be a great tour. But
that'd be awesome.
They do everything 18th century. Yep. So they had to rebuild the distillery. It burned down in 1814, but now they still use wood fires under the copper still.
Yep.
And that adds so much variance to the product.
For sure.
And I mean, obviously, that's kind of, I mean, it's a niche thing for them to do.
Yep.
No one can do that and stay sustainable nowadays. But I still think there's a lot of.
I wouldn't want to do it.
But there's a lot more craft to what you do, like you're just talking about. That you have more hands-on, you're moving hoses. Right. It's a working distillery rather than just, I mean, I've been to Jimmy before. It's a beautiful facility, but you go in there's no one there.
Right.
And do you hand bottle everything?
We do. Well, we have a small bottling line. I mean, there's 6 people working on the line.
Yeah. So it's hands-on.
And there's portions that are certainly done by hand.
Because you look at bottles, and this is one of my issues with the whiskey industry, is you see it handcrafted.
Right.
It's a bunch of
on there.
BS nonsense. So how do you get around? How do you get out there? How do you tell people that this is what we do? I mean, other than coming on this awesome podcast, but like.
That's first. We always look for your podcast. So I think for us, so Jim, I mentioned him earlier. He's our chief commercial officer. He was like very high up at Miller Coors. He was not used to our budgets.
Oh, sure.
Because we don't have budgets. So he's like, so what's the marketing budget? I'm like, what? What did you say? Oh yeah, we don't have those. We can get like a small one for you. But I think for us, it really is like, think like guerrilla marketing. Craft House and Kitchen has been great for us. You know, we're really proud to be big in the tourism space in Milwaukee. Have a lot of local guests, obviously. The food's great. Cocktails are incredible. And it's a really cool renovated 150-year-old building with a beautiful rooftop event spaces, all that. So for us, it starts here. Mm-hmm. Like we need to do a great job here evangelizing people, telling our story. Anytime we can tell our story and get liquid to lips, we can convert people and get them to try us. And then it comes down to the distributor relationship a lot, right? Where we're working with them on menu placements and getting into venues, both large and small, off-premise, on-premise, and then working with them on the merchandising and the creative. You know, we've got a really good team of designers that come up with creative ways to position our products in a way that, like I said about, Red Cabin with, a bonfire and like just stuff like that where it like harkens like memories for people. And and for us, we do some traditional marketing. It's not a lot. Again, being smaller and scrappy, that earned media, the PR, doing fun things in the community, giving back to the community for the right reasons. I think that resonates with people. And they are very good at sniffing out if it's complete bullshit and if it's just being done for PR.
Right.
So it's got to be authentic and we have fun with that. And we're super proud with the amount we're able to give back to the community and different charities around here.
That's awesome. Is any of in your product outside of the state?
Yeah, so we're in. It's mostly Wisconsin, but we're in Michigan, Minnesota, and Iowa, and very lightly in Illinois.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, I mean, on that note, I think we should move on. I know we have a rye to try.
Yeah, we do. Let's do it. And you just saw me take my last sip.
I did. I was trying to time it well, I wasn't just getting you hammered.
You nailed it. You've done this before. All right, so I brought this one out because I know you just did the George Washington.
Yes, I love rye.
Distillery. So this is our Washington rye. It is used making the same recipe. We don't use bonfires to heat the product though.
You don't dress in period garb?
We don't. Although we could. But this is one that's only available at Craft House. I love this product. There's a ton of complexity in it. It's 65% rye, so it's not overly spiced. It's a mellower rye, but it's awesome in cocktails.
It's super sweet on the nose. I love that.
Yeah, and it's super sweet on the finish too. So you this is all the ingredients in this entire bottle are from Ottawa, Wisconsin.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find a lot of times ryes are just rye spiced just to be rye spiced.
Right.
And I mean, friends I've introduced to rye whiskeys, they almost misinterpret that rye spice for that alcohol burn.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that rye is that's harsh.
Yep.
This is I think this would be a great like initial rye offering to someone who's never tried it before.
Yep.
Because it plays like your bourbon. It's very sweet, very smooth.
Yeah.
My goodness. I'll make a good Manhattan.
It makes a great Manhattan. We make a barrel-aged Manhattan with it.
Oh, man.
We've never sold it, but for us, it's great.
A lot of places I've gone to have showcased their white dog. And I'm sure you probably abide by the same standard. When you have a good white dog, a good ingredients, that alone is going to taste good. If you put something that's crappy in a barrel and age it, it's not going to make it better.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that process, how you know, that trial and error of learning about, oh, this is a miss. What do you do there?
We taught ourselves, which I wouldn't recommend that to anyone else. It takes longer. But like I said, when we first started making our white dog, our mash bills, and before putting them in the barrels, we tried them all. And I would say at that point, in our evolution, we didn't know what was good and what was bad, honestly. And so there were ones that we thought were going to be really good that ended up being, after sitting in the barrel for 6 months, we're terrible. I mean, we dumped a lot of them. And so it was also weird at that point. So that was 2014. That was kind of the tail end of moonshine like being a thing, where like people would buy it, which that was very confusing to me. But since we didn't have like a magic wand and we weren't buying bulk, we weren't able to have anything that said whiskey that was aged. So we tried a bunch of different crap, right? So we did the oat whiskey, which actually was really good. It was a little bit tequila-y almost. But it was like we made a giant batch of oatmeal, pitched yeast and enzymes, and like fermented it and distilled it. It was like a giant batch of oatmeal that was distilled. But it turned out really good, and it was very good in cocktails. It just wasn't something that you seek out when you see it on the shelf, right? So we had actually talked about continuing that one because we just kind of personally liked it. Yeah. Just no one else at the store liked it, so we stopped making it.
Well, they're wrong.
Yeah. Well, everyone's different.
Yeah.
And we had nothing else to compare it to. So
right. I got to ask you. I know we have a couple more to try, but what's your favorite? What do you love to bring home?
So I would say Red Cabin. I mean, it's such a smooth, mellow, flavorful bourbon.
Sure.
And I have 2 kids. They're both awesome. 8 and 5. So I don't have, like, during the week, if I'm gonna have a cocktail, my cocktail is like Red Cabin on a couple rocks. Yeah. Like that's the amount of time I have to make a cocktail before I've got to go throw a baseball or do a coloring project, which again is awesome. But I find myself gravitating towards that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I know, man. I know the kids are amazing. They're so much fun, and it's going too fast already.
Well, I bet. What about anyone that you've had a lot of fun making?
Oh man. I would probably say the Hofbrau one. It was probably one of the most difficult ones we've done, but it took like 5 months for us, like of trial and error. We knew we were onto something, but it took a really long time. And we changed the process a number of times, and it was like irritating yet rewarding, if that makes any sense. And so I really had a fun time doing that one. And the bourbon stuff and rye is always fun because, again, you do all the right things on the starting of it, put it in a barrel, and it's like, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you have an idea what you're shooting for, right? But you don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before about doing a distillery down the road, and once we, make some money and invest in something down, be like a friend distillery, cigar lounge, whatever it might be. But yeah, I think about that now, and I get anxiety about the patience that you have to have for. Well, what's it like for? The Red Cabin's 5-year. Is that a sweet spot you found, or is it sometimes a 6-year? Is it sometimes a 4-year? Does it depend?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's between 4 and 6. It's an average of 5.
Okay.
But we never dump more or less than 4 barrels.
Gotcha.
So we taste them all and make sure they're where they need to be, but we're always blending at least 4 barrels.
Very awesome. So of course you have all your whiskeys. but you also do brandy and you
We
do
do.
vodka.
Yep.
Tell me about those.
Man, well, I'll start with brandy. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, man. Like, I think that
Amen.
I think the first cocktail I ever had, I was probably not even in high school, and at a bar with my family. I'm sure it wasn't a full cocktail, but taking sips off my dad's old fashioned. Like, I love an old fashioned a number of different ways. And so for us, when we started the distillery, we started working on brandy right away. It took us forever. The first ones we made, we'd had to price them at about $40 on the shelf. That's not going to work. And the experience was so much different than what you expect, right? So, accounts or places around Wisconsin have been just blindly supporting large multinational corporations that don't have anybody that lives in Wisconsin. They never see anyone from that company. And it's just because they've always done it that way. And I can relate. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm not a big fan of change either. None of us are. But, it took us a number of years to kind of match the experience. If you pour North Brandy next to a large brandy company, it's a better experience.
I bet.
But similar, right? So like, if you go to a supper club, X supper club, like, well, this is what we've always done. This is what people expect. It's like, well, just try it side by side. Let's talk about it. And that's how we're able to win. Because all those places want to support a local company, but for us to get the price to where it is and to get the flavor to where it is, shit. You asked the question earlier. That was not a fun project at all. That was probably my least fun thing. So,
well, shall we?
Yeah, we should. Let's do it. So on our brandy, we found that we have to buy the grapes from California,
okay,
in order to get that flavor profile. So those are sourced from California. I feel like I just tattled on myself. I wish it was Wisconsin grapes.
Have you tried?
We have, yeah. And again, like it was really good. Our first batches were that, but the cost, the sugars were different in it. The fermentation was different in it.
Yeah.
A little bit less yield. And the experience at the end was just different.
Right.
So I'm not saying that we're not going to do other brandies down the road with Wisconsin grapes. I think we very much want to. We just got to get the brandy category heated up. I mean, this style is the only thing that really moves.
Really?
In Wisconsin, yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's other places that, you mentioned Great Lakes. They have a bunch of different flavored brandies. They're really good. Yeah. And I really like them. We have not gotten there yet. And Guy's doing a really good job on those. So, we've played around with some stuff here and there.
Well, this is phenomenal.
Isn't that good?
That is sweet.
I love this. Super smooth, super clean.
Yeah, it's 1,000 times better than Corbel.
It really is.
Wow.
And we get that now. And we're doing side by sides. It's not quite the Pepsi challenge, a little bit less theatrical, but it's similar, and we win.
Have you thought about playing around with other types of fruit brandy, like an apple brandy or a peach brandy?
Yeah, we have, and we have done R&D on it.
Okay.
It's just not something that we. Going back to what I said earlier in the conversation with our distributors, I mean, I can't as much. We did an apple brandy, and it was quite good, and it was really good in cocktails. It's just, brandy's already a pretty small segment, and then you start going smaller and smaller in that segment. It's like how do you want to focus your distributor?
Right.
And although it's really good, and I think it would sell when it was placed in the right spots, it's just we can't expect them to get it out.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, so have you done whiskey for longer, or what are you known for now? Because this brandy is phenomenal.
I don't know what we're known for. I mean, sometimes it's you're too close to it sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say if I like looking at our business, brandy and Door County Cherry, which we'll get to next, are our two best sellers.
Okay.
It kind of goes back and forth depending on the time of year. And Red Cabin's right, pretty close behind that. And we've programmed those three as the ones that we want to move.
Sure.
And I don't know, I would say, brandy or Door County Cherry.
Yeah. Well, and just speaking objectively too, I mean, I've seen Door County Cherry out in the streets more so than I've seen your bourbon. I've actually I've had to search for your Red Cabin.
Yeah.
And coming here, I told my dad I'm doing this, and it's like, well, I just got that for my sister-in-law, Central Standard's Door County Cherry, and it's like, oh, okay, well,
your dad's a genius. We're old friends now.
Well, the only other craft distilleries that I can think of doing, I mean, there's a lot of whiskey distilleries doing gin and vodkas, but the Door County Peninsula has a Door County Cherry vodka and gin. And I don't know, I think they are just up there. I don't know how good your distribution is, but is that everywhere in the state?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. We can move on to we'll talk a little bit more about Door County Cherry. I think the story behind it is fun. It kind of shows what kind of scrappy entrepreneurs do when faced with a problem. Yeah. I'll tell that story. I'll do that now, and we'll talk about how we make it. So we were meeting with the baseball team here in town, and they've got a big vodka sponsorship, and they really liked our vodkas and our vodka, but it just wasn't something that they could get around the sponsorship, which that's fine, totally fine. There was a carve out though that flavored vodka, if it was like a local company, local ingredients. Mm-hmm. So I mean, Pat and I literally drove separate to the meeting, and they're like, well, do you have anything like that? We're like, well, yeah, of course. I didn't think you'd want it. We left the meeting, both got in our cars. I went to Door County and got cherries. Then I went to Wausau and got ginseng, and he went to Toma and got cranberry. And we came back and we made this, and it's our best selling product. Wow. We made it in like a week. Wow. And so it was crazy. We brought it back. They're like, love it. Like they make the mule with it. I'm like, fantastic. So it was kind of like a happenstance. Right. But yeah, we have a really great relationship with Sequest Orchard and Sister Bay. They do such a great job. And if those listening, if you've never been to Door County for like cherry season, it's so much fun and it's just beautiful up there. And so we go up for cherry, the harvest every year, and they press a fresh juice for us. We make the vodka, add the juice, and then back sweeten it with a little bit of local honey to take a little bit of that tartness out of the. Let's try it.
Yeah, please.
A little bit of the tartness out of the cherry, but it's just one of those. It's one of those spirits that you can mix with anything. I mean, I would say, but milk, anything but milk, you can mix this with, and it's great. Super easy to make cocktails when I again with the kids. Like if I'm at home and I want a cocktail, you can put it with a juice, or you can put it with a Coke, and it's a cherry Coke. Yeah. Mules are great with it.
Oh my God, that's like cherry juice. That's dangerous.
But it's funny. I mean, you taste that sweetness from the honey and the cherries. We don't add sugar to it. We don't add. The category from the government is flavored vodka. Like we're not flavoring anything. Like we're adding actual ingredients to it. So that's been that. It's a fun story, and it's delicious in the summer, especially.
It's delicious right now.
10% of the nation's cherries come from Door County, Wisconsin. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, so I talked about that because Door County, they have their Door County whiskey. Is it Door County Whiskey Company?
I'm not sure.
I think they're part of Door County Peninsula Winery.
Yeah.
They have a decent whiskey, a single malt whiskey that I enjoy. It's good for a cocktail.
Yeah.
It's kind of a copy of a Scotch. But there's also Hatch, which I'm actually talking to next week. Yeah. And I have a special place in my heart for Door County. I grew up in Milwaukee, but my mom's parents, my grandparents, moved up there 25 years ago, retired up to Sturgeon Bay.
Nice.
So I've been up there quite a bit. And so Door County cherries, it pulls on the heartstrings a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah.
You'll have a great time at Hatch. They're good guys. It's a cool facility. Egg Harbor is nice.
So you're going to hate me. This is another one that I haven't been to.
Yeah.
And I've driven up to Egg Harbor all my life, and I'm a big whiskey guy, and I never made time to go there because I was there to visit Grandma and Grandpa.
Well, I think that we as an industry have done a much better job. I think, when I think Guy, you just interviewed him. He opened in 04, 06, something like that.
I think 06.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was him and like maybe a couple others until we came along. So there hasn't been you've got like this great Brewers Guild. You've got a great winery association. and we're kind of like the new kids on the block. And for the first, I'm not gonna, no bullshit. Like the first 4 or 5 years of a distillery, it is a grind. I mean, you're just like trying to stay in business, hanging on, right? It's a big investment to start. And then you're just clawing to stay afloat. And so, a lot of us had started around the same time. We just didn't have the time to give to like a guild.
Sure.
And so I would say now we've done a good job though. We've got the Wisconsin Distillers Guild. We're part of the Wisconsin Craft Beverage Coalition. We all have a little bit more, not a lot more time, but we see each other more, right? And we all are lobbying in Madison or doing events around the state and doing samplings, and it's really become kind of it's become a really cool fraternity. That's awesome.
I love that about, I mean, where else can you say that happens other than craft distilling? I mean, it's a small market, but it has that, we talked about that before, that perception of just tender loving care that you give to this. I mean, the more and more you talk about this, and the more I can tell you care about the product, which to me, whether or not a side by side would matter, it makes it a better product.
Right.
It helps the marketing. You don't have to do all that crazy spending on marketing. It's organic because of the love you have for it.
Well, it's genuine, and I think
exactly
that there's lots of distilleries now, and not lots. I would say 35 to 40-ish in the state, but it's 99% asshole free. I mean, everyone got in for the right reasons.
Yes.
And it is genuine, and not just us. It's all of our peers, and so that has made it, I would say, a lot easier to support the guild, because there's a lot. Take craft alcohol or craft beverage out of it, but there's other industries where there's a lot more access to come in and take a few quick bucks and get out or whatever. And like, there's no nefariousness in this industry. We're all doing it for the right reasons, for the same reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess last big question. What can we look forward to from Central Standard? What do you have coming up that people can look forward to? And I mean, tell us about it.
That is a great question. We have a lot of great R&D stuff and a lot of plans for next year that I can't really share right now. But I would say that we need to do a better job, Central Standard, in supporting the other markets that we're in. We do well in Michigan, Iowa, and Minnesota.
Sure.
Are we giving it our best effort? No, we're not. And it's because we still have so much opportunity in Wisconsin, and we're constantly doing these large, we bought this building right as COVID was starting and finished it 2 years ago. We've been open for 2 years. This is a big project for a company like ours. We're out of space at our current distillery over by Marquette. We've got 2 separate warehouses offsite, bonded warehouses, so I would say that expansion of our current production before more expansion. We're not looking to machine gun our way around the country. We want to go deeper in markets.
Sure.
I mean, our whole ethos is we want to build relationships and not depend on our distributor partners. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the accounts. Where we send a truckload up to Minnesota and it's like, all right guys, well, you paid for it, so you might as well sell it. Like, we want to be doing that hand-to-hand combat. We want to be making those relationships, and it feels a little weird right now because in the last 12 months we haven't done a lot for them, and so I would say we need to expand our manufacturing capabilities, and then put some more boots on the ground and make ourselves more available as we have time to come up for air.
Sure. Well, hey, I mean, as a fan, as a drinker of whiskey and obviously other liquors, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you sitting down with me and having this conversation.
Absolutely, man. It was nice to meet you.
Of course, you too. And I hope to give this out to some of my friends and people who are listening, and they can come to Milwaukee and find a great spot. Because I mean, aside from the whiskey too, you have a great event space. So
we do.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, this has been great for us down here.
Yeah.
And we're like one of 4 rooftop bars in Milwaukee, so it's pretty crazy up there on nice days.
I'm sure. Well, Evan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yep. Good to meet you, man.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it if you left us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The more reviews, the easier we are to find. Also, if you aren't already, be sure to follow us on social media so you never miss any of our updates. Be sure to share this episode with your friends, and always be sure to drink responsibly. There are quite literally thousands of distilleries, so we're just getting started. Stay tuned for more conversations with master distillers, distillery owners, mixologists, and even bar owners, and more. Cheers.